Very well. So with this video we've come to a very important part of the process, and that is combining the different pieces of the body to come to a fuller geometry. And so we can start to add details. The steps are really simple. First step for this Hulk is separating the toes. In this moment the character has its toes really close to each other. And what could happen is that when we convert with Dynamesh, it'll begin to deform, and some connections between the toes will appear. That is something we couldn't afford ourselves. So let's make room between them, modifying as less as possible, so we won't lose any kind of shape. For example, this pinky. Okay, I believe the space will be enough. Let's organize the foot for a moment. Something really quick. I think that'll be fine. So now the pieces won't combine as much. I'd say the fingers are fine, just like that. They have enough space between them. But what we do have to modify is the mouth. Here we're going to need to open the mouth a bit more. So we won't lose any detail. If we leave the mouth too shut, most probably some polygons will start to merge. Very well. After we finish with the mouth, we're gonna take these three subtools and we're gonna duplicate them. Over here, here, and over here. And these two copies of the fingers are going to be sent up. Now, what we have is a copy that is something like a save of the original subtool. The next step, to each of these copies, we're gonna leave between the second and third subdivision or so. And we'll delete higher and lower subdivisions. The lower, the higher. We need the geometries to not have any subdivisions and also to have a light resemblance to the original model shape. When these subdivisions collapse, we have something like tree models with relative details, relative shapes, and that's perfect for what comes. These three subtools that don't have any subdivisions, we're going to combine them with merge down. Now with this, we have a model in one single subtool and with a good shape. Now we're gonna take this model and we're gonna apply Dynamesh. Here it won't work very well because it has very low resolution, and therefore these kind of things happen. The toes and fingers are merged, so all that work is lost. In that case, we have to modify the resolution up to 1800 or 1900, more or less. And in this case it could take a little longer because it will generate more polygons than before. But we see that the result is what we needed. A mesh that now is completely efficient, didn't go to waste, didn't merge weirdly. There are no cross polygons. And in the face we see it work as well. The steps up to here have been relatively simple. Now we have too many polygons. We are over 20 millions and that's way too much. With lower capacity equipment, you'll be backheld, so we'll have to optimize our model. We're gonna aim for less polygons and to be way easier to manage. The next step we need for the improvement of our model, for it to be much easier to manage. Turn off Dynamesh. Okay, we're gonna go with the C-Remesh. Well, I'm gonna make some tests to explain to you how Dynamesh is going to function. What we have to do. Don't do them yourself in the project you have, so your computer won't crash, okay? If we only go through C-Remesh with this model. Let's move higher the target polygons count. This is the initial amount of polygons after we apply C-Remesh. We see that the polygons quantity compared to the original model are very similar. But if we only click on C-Remesh, what will happen is that in general, the whole model will have the same amount of polygons. In this case, it won't work for us. You'll ask why. But it's fine. But if we compare fingers of this model with the ones of the original model, the one that we suppose could have much more detail, we can see that this new model has much less polygons. That means that when it comes to pass the details from this model to this entire one, we are losing some quality. We are losing polygons. We're gonna lose shapes, and this is not only happening on fingers but also on toes. And of course, the face. We have to give some orders to ZBrush, so it gives us more polygons in these areas. How to do so? There's an option called Use Polypaint that basically allows us to tell ZBrush in which areas to accumulate more polygons. Let's see how this works. We go first to Clay Buildup or other brush and activate this RGB option in case it isn't activated yet, and turn off the ones for sculpting. Okay, so what we're gonna do is to paint. Here it is not very evident because I'm painting in white, but let's see that quickly with other material. This one could be useful. Through painting, we're gonna tell ZBrush that certain areas are meant to have more polygons, and that is controlled from here, color density. How does this work? Depending on the quantity we add in here, the areas we paint are going to have more polygons than the ones not painted. For example, we're going to paint the hands with a value of 3, more or less. If we look closely, when we move these values here, the colors change automatically. This works according to intensities, from reds and blues. For example, if you want a tree, it will mean these areas we're painting, in this case in red. We're gonna give it a bit of color. Let's invert the mask. Fill object. These areas painted in red will have as much as 3 times the polygons than the normal areas. That means the ones not painted. So we'll do that with various body areas. Color, fill object, so you don't have to paint it all manually. In the face, we're gonna make the exact same thing. We're gonna mask these areas, and we're gonna go with color and fill object. Here we are gonna make a change, and that is to grow the value to the density. Now, this area we're going to paint is gonna have as much as 4 times the polygons in normal areas, the ones not painted. Here we can help a little bit with a brush. I'm gonna make the test again in this case. Going with Z-Remesh, and how did it go? We have a much more adjusted mesh over hands, feet, and in the face we have more polygons than before. Now we'll have a much better quality in details when it comes to copy the details of the model we already had. We are okay until now, I'd say. The polygons in the face are not oriented correctly. They are very disorganized, so to say, and that won't allow us to have as much detail as we could. What is lacking then? To organize correctly the loops, so the polygons will look much more organized and may go into much more detail. We're gonna stop with this video now